Yes, imagine me as Gandalf. You will actually see me as Gandalf in just a second. Hello, everybody. Uh, welcome to stream. Heck. Um, I'm not in cosplay yet. Say hi first, without the uh, and then I'd get dressed so you can see. Oh, and I am gonna be. I've got like a. I've got a thing, cloak thing. So we're wearing. By the way, how is the audio? Like the music? Can you guys hear it? This will work fine. Yeah, this is. Oh, so the music is very quiet. Give me a second then. Very quiet. Okay. Sec. I will turn the music up a bit. So I don't want the music to overpower the my actual words. So I'm trying to make this work. And let's see now. Got. Oh, thank you for the follow. Oh, and my cat's coming. Never mind. He is getting water. Give me a sec. I want to showcase what I am playing. Uh, uh, Spotify. This is the one. Spotify. Okay, so it is better then. Good. I think that's what you're saying, right? I just saw the yes. Yes, yes. Ooh, okay, we're gonna re-add. That's a source. Finally can hear. Had to. Oh, I mean, my volume is at so be fine. I don't have anything on my audio that should affect it way. And I'm looking at it might just have just been a volume thing. So let me real quick. We're gonna add source. We're gonna do not alert box, not chat. No. Video capture, no. Capture, I guess this might. No, but it's web based content. So and this one, let's try this one, and we're gonna call this Spotify. Hey there, there. Guys can't see that. There's you get to see us. You get to see. But first thing today, aren't you guys lucky? Cat ass right in your face. Spotify. Here we are. Here we are. Oh my god, that's big. Holy crap. We don't want that. At here? It's supposed to go behind this little thingy. This. Here. There. Oh, that's good. That's not what I wanted. No, Spotify. Yeah, that's my kitten. Ooh, that's long. Oh my god, what am I doing? And maybe we'll just... Because that's kind of small anyways. Maybe we'll just... Like this. There. Okay. I think that's the best I can do. Honestly speaking, I love to like dig in and really like have an actual showcases like each individual song so that you... This is this is I think the I can do. So it's unfortunate, but oh no, it's playing now. There we go. Hmm. So we'll at least showcase like this part right here. I'm moving myself now. Spotify and there. Win Mind's Eye. Okay. Let me volume up just a bit here for the music. Now, does everything sound all right? Can you hear the music now? Can't hear it at all. Mother... Properties. Going through the right device. And I'm seeing on here, maybe I'll just turn it there. All right. It might not be the delay, so I don't know. The delay is on YouTube. There shouldn't be much of a delay, to be honest. So you hear it now? It's on. Okay. So I just adjusted. It died. That's because I turned there. Okay. That should be fine. Right there. That's half the volume that my mic is set at. I don't want it to overpower. I just want it to be like background noise. So if you can hear it, which I hope you can, great. If you can't hear it, sorry, there's nothing more I can do. I'm an idiot. I cannot fix this. I am not tech support. I am literally typing and it gets posted like... That might be... Okay, I'm glad you can hear it now. Real quick, before I get into this, I will see if I can adjust the latency. Stream output. Oh, maybe I can't adjust the latency. I don't know. Hotkey. Process priority, audio, file name. I'll figure out the latency later, since all I'm doing right now is going to be reading. I don't think it's that big a deal. But I'm going to get dressed in my Gandalf cosplay. Be right back. As you can see, I am now Gandalf the Grey. I will keep that in that there is some latency. Hopefully in my next I can fix it. Cause right now I don't know. So yeah. Here we are. Oh, and there we go. Now you can actually see what is playing right now. There we go. So I got my big super thick. Just this. That's good. Read. You guys are lucky. You're actually getting. I don't hear. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Literally, I just threw like a little cloak over. I threw a cloak over my shirtless, pajama-clad body, and got myself a wig and every Gandalf needs his pointy hat. So here we go. I will be reading now. I will periodically try to look at my chat so that I can see if anyone said anything and respond accordingly. But for now, you sit back. Alright, here we go. Frodo woke suddenly. It was still dark in the room. Merry was standing there with a candle in one hand and banging on the door with the other. "All right, what is it?" said Frodo, still shaken and bewildered. "What is it?" cried Merry. "It is time to get up. It is 4:30 and very foggy. Come on. Sam is already getting breakfast ready. Even Pippin is up. I am just going to saddle the ponies and fetch the one that is to be the baggage carrier. Wake that sluggard fatty. At least he must get up and see us off." Soon after 6 o'clock, the 5 hobbits were ready to start. Fatty Bolger was still yawning. They stole quietly out of the house. Merry went in front, leading a laden pony, and took his way along a path that went through a spinney behind the house, and then cut across several fields. The leaves of trees were glistening, and every twig was dripping. The grass was gray with cold dew. Everything was still, and far away noises seemed near and clear. Fowls chattering in a yard. Someone closing the door of a distant house. In their shed they found the ponies, sturdy little beasts of the kind loved by hobbits. Not speedy, but good for a long day's work. They mounted, and soon they were riding off into the mist, which seemed to open reluctantly before them and close forbiddingly behind them. After riding for about an hour, slowly and without talking, they saw the hedge looming suddenly ahead. It was tall and netted over with silver cobwebs. "How are you going to get through this?" asked Fredegar. "Follow me," said Merry, "and you will see." He turned to the left along the hedge, and soon they came to a point where it bent inwards, running along the lip of a hollow. A cutting had been made at some distance from the hedge, and went sloping gently down into the ground. It had walls of brick at the sides, which rose steadily, until suddenly they arched over and formed a tunnel that dived deep under the hedge and came out in the hollow on the other side. Here, Fatty Bolger halted. Goodbye, Frodo, he said. I wish you were not going into the forest. I only hope you will not need rescuing before the day is out. But good luck to you, day and every day. If there are no worse things ahead than the old forest, I shall be lucky, said Frodo. Tell Gandalf to hurry along the east road. We shall soon be back on it and going as fast as we can. Goodbye, they cried, and rode down the slope and disappeared from Fredegar's sight into the tunnel. It was dark and damp. At the far end, it was closed by a gate of thick-set iron bars. Merry got down and unlocked the gate, and when they had all passed through, he pushed it to again. It shut with a clang, and the lock clicked. The sound was ominous. There, said Merry. You have left the Shire, and are now outside, and on the edge of the old forest. Are the stories about it true? Asked Pippin. I don't know what stories you mean, Merry answered. If you mean the old bogey stories Fatty's nurses used to tell him, about goblins and wolves and things of that sort, I'd say no. At any rate, I don't believe them. But the forest is queer. Everything about it is very much more alive, more aware of what is going on, so to speak, than things are in the Shire. And the trees do not like strangers. They watch you. They are usually content merely to watch you as long as daylight lasts, and don't do much. Occasionally, the most unfriendly ones may drop a branch or stick a root out, or grasp you with a long trailer. But at night, things can be most alarming, or so I'm told. I have only once or twice been in here after dark, and only near the edge. I thought all the trees were whispering to each other, news and plots along in an unintelligible language, and the branches swayed and groped without any wind. They do say trees usually do actually move, and can surround strangers and hem them in. In fact, long ago, they attacked the hedge. They came and planted themselves right by it, and leaned over it. The hobbits came out and cut down hundreds of trees, and made a great bonfire in the forest, and burned all the ground in a long strip east of the hedge. After that, the trees gave up the attack, but they became very unfriendly. There is still a wide bare space, not far from where the bonfire was made. Is it only the trees that are dangerous? There are various queer things living deep in the forest, and on the far side, Merry, or at least I have heard so. But I have never seen any of them. Something makes paths. Whenever one comes inside, one finds open tracks. They seem to shift and change from time to time in a queer fashion. Not far from this tunnel there is, or was for a long time, the beginning of quite a broad path leading to the bonfire glade. And then on, more or less, in our direction, east and a little north, that is the path I'm going to try and find. The hobbits now left the tunnel gate and rode across the wide hollow. On the far side was a faint path leading up onto the floor of the forest, 100 yards and more beyond the hedge, but it vanished as soon as it brought them near the trees. Looking back, they could see the dark line of the hedge through the stems of trees that were already thick about them. Looking ahead, they could see only tree trunks of innumerable sizes and shapes, straight or bent, twisted, leaning, squat or slender, smooth or gnarled and branched, and all the stems were green or gray with moss and slimy, shaggy growths. Merry alone seemed fairly cheerful. You had better lead on and find that... You had better lead on and find that path, Frodo said to him. Don't let us lose one another, or forget which way the hedge lies. They picked a way among the trees, and their ponies plodded along, carefully avoiding the many writhing and interlacing roots. There was no undergrowth,
The ground was rising steadily, and as they went forward, it seemed that the trees became taller, darker, thicker. There was no sound, except an occasional drip of moisture falling through the still leaves. For the moment, there was no whispering or movement among the branches, but they all got an uncomfortable feeling that they were being watched with disapproval, deepening to dislike and even enmity. The feeling steadily grew until they found themselves looking up quickly or glancing back over their shoulders, as if they expected a sudden blow. There was not yet any sign of a path, and the trees seemed constantly to bar their way. Pippin suddenly felt that he could not bear it any longer, and without warning let out a shout. "Oi! Oi!" he cried. "I'm not going to do anything. Just let me pass through, will you?" The others halted, startled, but the cry fell as if muffled by a heavy curtain. There was no echo or answer, though the wood seemed to become more crowded, more watchful than ever. "I should not shout if I were you," said Mary. "It does more harm than good." Frodo began to wonder if it were possible to find a way through, and if he had been right to make the others come into this abominable wood. Mary was looking from side to side, seemed already uncertain which way to go. Pippin noticed it. "It has not taken you long to lose us," he said. But at that moment Mary gave a whistle of relief and pointed ahead. "Oh well," he said. "These trees do shift. There is a bonfire glade in front of us, or I hope so, but the path to it seems to have moved away." The light grew clearer as they went forward. Suddenly, they came out of the trees and found themselves in a wide, circular space. There was a sky above them, blue and clear to their surprise. For down under the forest roof, they had not been able to see the rising morning and the lifting mist. The sun was not, however, high enough yet to shine down into the clearing, though its light was on the treetop. The leaves were all thicker and greener about the edges of the glade, enclosing it with an almost solid wall. No tree grew there, only rough grass and many tall plants, stocky, faded hemlocks, and wood parsley, fireweed, feeding into fluffy ashes, and rampant nettles and thistles. A dreary place, but it seemed a charming and cheerful garden after the close forest. The hobbits felt encouraged and looked up hopefully at the broadening daylight in the sky. At the far side of the glade there was a break in the wall of trees and a clear path beyond it. They could not see it running on into the wood, wide in places and open above, though every now and again the trees drew in and overshadowed it with their dark boughs. Up this path they rode. They were still climbing gently, but they now went much quicker, and with better hearts, for it seemed to them that the forest had relented, and was going to let them pass unhindered after all. But after a while, the air began to get hot and stuffy. The trees drew close again on either side, and they could no longer see far ahead. Now, stronger than ever, they felt again the ill will of the wood pressing on them. So silent was it that the fall of their ponies' hooves, rustling on dead leaves and occasionally stumbling on hidden roots, seemed to thud in their ears. Frodo tried to sing a song to encourage them, but his voice sank to a murmur. "Oh, wanderer in the shadowed land, despair not, for though dark they stand, all woods there must be end at last, and see the open sun go past. The setting sun, the rising sun, the day's end, or the days begin. For east or west, all woods must fail." Fail. Even as he said the word, his voice faded into silence. The air seemed heavy, and the making of words wearisome. Just behind them, a large branch fell from an old overhanging tree with a crash into the path. The trees seemed to close in before them. "Do not like at all that about ending and failing," said Mary. "I should not sing any more at present. Wait till we do get to the edge, and then we'll turn and give them a rousing chorus." He spoke cheerfully, but if he felt any great anxiety, he did not show it. The others did not answer. They were depressed. A heavy weight was settling steadily on Frodo's heart, and he regretted now, with every step forward, that he had ever thought of challenging the menace of the trees. He was, indeed, just about to stop and propose going back. That was still possible, when things took a new turn. The path stopped climbing, and became for a while nearly level. The dark trees drew aside, and ahead they could see the path going almost straight forward. Before them, but some distance off, there stood a green hilltop, treeless, rising like a bald head out of the encircling wood. The path seemed to be making directly for it. They now hurried forward again, delighted with the thoughts, for a while above the roof of the forest. The path dipped, and then again began to climb upwards, leading them at last to the foot of the hillside. There it left the trees and faded into the turf. The wood stood all round the hill like thick hair that ended sharply, circled round a shaven crown. The hobbits led their ponies up, winding round and round until they reached the top. There they stood and gazed about them. The air was gleaming in sunlight, easy, and they could not see to any great distance. Near at hand, the mist was now almost gone, though here and there it lay in hollows of the wood. And to the south of them, out of a deep fold cutting right across the forest, the fog still rose, in wisps of white smoke. "That," said Merry, pointing with his hand, "that is the line of the Withy Windle. Comes down out of the downs and flows southwest to the midst of the forest to join the Brandywine below. We don't want to go that way. Windle Valley is said to be the queen wood, enter from which from." The others looked in the direction that Mary pointed out. They could see little but mist over the damp and cut valley, and beyond it, the southern half of the forest faded from view. The sun on the hilltop was now getting hot. It must have been around 11 o'clock. The autumn haze still prevented them much other direction. In the west, they could not make out either the line of the hedge or the valley of the Brandywine beyond it. Northward, where they looked most hopefully, they could see nothing that might be the line of the great east road, for which they were making. They were on an island in a sea of trees. The horizon was veiled. On the southeastern side, the ground fell very steeply, as if the slopes of the hill were continued far down below the trees, like island shores that really are the sides of a mountain rising out of deep waters. They sat on the green edge and looked out over the woods below them, while they ate their midday meal. As the sun rose and passed noon, they glimpsed far off in the distance the gray-green lines of the downs that lay beyond the old forest on that side. That cheered them greatly, for it was good to see a sight of anything on the wood's border, though they did not mean to go that way if they could help it. The Barrow Downs had as sinister a reputation in Hobbit legend as the forest itself. At length, they made up their minds to go on again. The path that had brought them to the hill reappeared on the northwest side, but they had not followed it far before they became aware that it was bending steadily to the right. Soon it began to descend rapidly, and they guessed that it must actually be heading toward the Withywindle Valley, not at all the direction they wished to take. After some discussion, they decided to leave this leading path and strike northward, for although they had not been able to see it from the hilltop, the road must lie that way, and it could not be many miles off. Also northward, and to the left of the path, the land seemed to be drier, more open. Climbing up to slopes where the trees were thinner, and pines and firs replaced the oaks and ashes and other strange and nameless trees of the denser wood. At first their choice seemed to be good. They got along at a fair speed, though whatever they caught a glimpse of, the sun in an open glade, seemed unaccountably to have veered east. But after a time, the trees began to close in again, just where they had appeared, a distance to be thinner and less tangled. Then deep folds in the ground were discovered unexpectedly, like the ruts of great giant wheels or wide moats, sunken roads, long disused and choked with brambles. These lay usually right across their line of march, and could only be crossed by scrambling down and out again, which was troublesome and difficult for their ponies. Each time they climbed down, they found the hollow filled with thick bushes and matted undergrowth, which somehow would not yield to the left, but only gave way when they turned to the right, and they had to go some distance along the bottom before they could find a way up further bank. Each time they clambered out, the trees seemed deeper, darker, and always to the left and upwards. It was most difficult to find a way, and they were forced to the right and downwards. After an hour or two, they had lost all clear sense of direction, though they knew well enough that they had long ceased to go northward at all. They were being headed off, and were simply following a course chosen for them, eastward and southward, into the heart of the forest and not out of it. The afternoon was wearing away. Lord JKR, welcome. Also, Thai, thank you for the compliment on my cosplay. I do think I look rather fetching. Oh, I don't know if you could hear that. I do think I look rather fetching as an old bloke. So, welcome Lord JKR to my reading of The Lord of the Rings. I hope you enjoy it. Where was I? I have no idea. I lost my place. Give me a second. The afternoon was wearing away when they scrambled and stumbled into a fold that was wider and deeper than any they had yet met. It was so steep and overhung that it proved impossible to climb out of it again, either forwards or backward, without leaving their ponies and their baggage behind. All they could do was to follow the fold downwards. The ground grew soft and in places boggy. Springs appeared in the banks, and soon they found themselves following a brook, trickled, dabbled through a weedy bed. Then the ground began to fall rapidly, and the brook, growing strong and noisy, flowed and leaped swiftly downhill. They were in a deep, dim-lit gully, overarched by trees high above them. After stumbling along for some way along the stream, they came quite suddenly out of the gloom. As if through a gate, they saw the sunlight before them. Coming to the opening, they found that they had made their way down through a cleft in a high, steep bank, almost a cliff. At its feet was a wide space of grass and reeds, and in the distance could be glimpsed another bank almost as steep. A golden afternoon of late sunshine lay warm and drowsy upon the hidden land between. In the midst of it there wound lazily a dark river of brown water, bordered with ancient willows, arched over with willows, blocked fallen willows, and flecked with thousands of faded willow leaves. The air was thick with them, fluttering yellow from the branches, for there was a warm and gentle breeze blowing softly in the valley, and the reeds were rustling, and the willow boughs were creaking. "Well, I have at least some notion of where we are," said Mary. "We have come almost in the opposite direction to which we intended. This is the river Withywindle. I will go on and explore." He passed out the sunshine and disappeared into the grasses. After a while he reappeared and reported that there was fairly solid ground at the foot of the river. In some places, firm turf down to the edge. "What's more," he said, "there seems to be something like winding along this side of the river. Turn left and follow it. Bound to come out side of the forest eventually." Guess I'll show you guys this. So they did a illustration in here. Run across these in this volume. I remember the first time I read this, they did not have any of the illustrations, but I think this is like a special edition with illustrations, which I think is pretty. Worried that you guys might not hear all the words I'm saying. Mary and Pippin dragged themselves forward and lay down on with their backs to the willow trunk. Behind them, the great cracks gaped wide to receive them as the trees swayed and creaked. Nope, never mind. That was bad. Sorry, I missed a page. "I dare say," said Pippin. "That is, if the track goes on so far, and does not simply lead us into a bog and leave us here. Who made the track, do you say? Why? I am sure it was not for our benefit. Getting very suspicious of this forest, everything in it. I begin to believe all the stories about it. Have you any idea how far eastward we should have to go?" "Oh," said Mary, "I haven't. I don't know if the least how far down the Withywindle we are, or who could possibly come here often enough to make a path along it. But there is no other way out that or think of." There being nothing else for it, they filed out. Mary led them to the path had discovered. Everywhere, reeds and grasses were lush, and in places far above their heads, once found, the path was easy to follow as it turned and twisted, picking out the sounder ground among the bogs and pools. Here and there it passed over other rills, running down gullies to the Withywindle out of the higher forest land. And at these points there were tree trunks or bundles of brushwood laid carefully across. The hobbits began to feel very hot. There were armies of flies of all kinds buzzing around their ears, and the afternoon sun was burning on their backs. At last, they came suddenly into a thin shade. Great gray branches reached across the path. Each step forward became more reluctant at last. Sleepiness seemed to be creeping out of the ground and up their legs, and falling softly out of the air upon their heads and eyes. Frodo felt his chin go down and his head nod. Just in front of him, Pippin fell forward onto his knees. Frodo halted. It's no good, he heard Mary saying. Can't go another step without rest. Must have nap. Cool under the willows. Less flies. Frodo did not like the sound of this. Come on, he cried. We can't have a nap yet. We must get clear of the forest first. But the others were too far gone to care. Beside them, Sam stood, yawning and blinking stupidly. Suddenly, Frodo himself felt sleep overwhelming him. Head swam. There now seemed hardly a sound in the air. The flies had stopped buzzing. Only a gentle noise on the edge of hearing. A soft fluttering, as if a song half whispered, seemed to stir in the boughs above. He lifted his heavy eyes and saw leaning over him a huge willow tree, old and hoary. Enormous it looked, its sprawling branches up like reaching arms with many long-fingered hands. Its knotted and twisted trunk gaping in wide fissures that creaked faintly as the boughs moved. The leaves fluttering against the bright sky dazzled him. Toppled over, flying, fell upon the grass. Merry and Pippin dragged themselves forward and laid down with their backs to the willow trunk. Behind them, great cracks gaped wide to receive them as the tree swayed and creaked. They looked up at the gray and yellow leaves, moving softly against the light, singing. They shut their eyes, and then it seemed that they could almost hear words, cool words, saying something about water and sleep. They gave themselves up to the spell and fell fast asleep at the foot of the great gray willow. Frodo lay for a while, fighting with the sleep that was overpowering him. Then, with an effort, he struggled to his feet again. He made a compelling desire for cool water. Wait for me, Sam, stammered. Must bathe a minute. Half in a dream, wandered forward to the riverside of the tree, where great winding roots grew out to the stream, like gnarled dragonets raining down to drink. Straddled one of these, paddled his hot feet in cool brown water, and there he too suddenly fell asleep, back, free. Sam sat down and scratched his head, and yawned in the cavern. He was worried. The afternoon was getting late. He thought this sudden sleepiness was uncanny. There's more to this sun and warm air. I don't like this great big tree. Trust it. Hark at it singing about sleep now. Do it all. He pulled himself to his feet, staggered off what had become ponies. Found that two had wandered on. Just brought them back toward the others. Heard two others soft but very clear. One was the splash of something heavy falling into the water. The other was a noise like the snick of a lock. Closes fast. He rushed back to the bank. Frodo was in the water, close to the edge, and a great tree root over him, holding him down. But he was not struggling. Sam gripped him by the jacket and dragged him under the root, and then with difficulty hauled him onto the bank. Almost at once he coughed and spluttered. You know, Sam, he said at length, the beast threw me in. Felt it. The big root twisted round and tipped me in. Dreaming, I expect, Mr. Frodo. Shouldn't sit in such a place if you feel. What about the others? Frodo asked. They are having. They went round to the other side of the tree. and then Sam understood what he had heard. Pippin had vanished. The crack by which he had laid himself had closed together, so that not a chink could be seen. Merry was trapped. Another crack had closed about his waist. His legs lay outside, but the rest of him was inside a dark opening, the edges of which gripped a pair of pincers. Frodo and Sam beat first upon the tree trunk where Pippin had lain. Then they struggled frantically to pull open the jaw of the crack that held poor Merry. It was quite useless. "What a foul thing to happen!" cried Frodo. "Why did we ever come into this dreadful forest? Wish we were all back at Crick Hollow." He kicked the tree with all his strength, heedless of his own feet. A hardly perceptible shiver ran through the stem and up into the branches. The leaves rustled and whispered, with a sound now of faint and far-off laughter. "I don't suppose we haven't got an axe around among our luggage, Mr. Frodo?" asked. "I brought a little hatchet for chopping firewood," said Frodo. "That wouldn't be much use." "Wait a minute," cried Sam, struck by an idea suggested by firewood. "You might do something with fire." "Might," said Frodo with doubt. "Might succeed roasting Pippin alive inside. Might try to hurt or frighten the tree to... Blah, 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 sorry. I am so out of it today. We might try to hurt or frighten this tree to begin with," said Sam fiercely. "If it don't let them go, have it down. I have to gnaw it." He ran to the ponies, and before long came back with 2 tinder boxes. Quickly they gathered dry grass and leaves and bits of bark, made a pile of broken twigs and chopped sticks. These they heaped against the trunk on the far side of the tree from the prisoners. As soon as Sam had struck a spark into the tinder, it kindled the dry grass, and a flurry of flame and smoke went up. The twigs crackled. Little fingers of fire licked against the dry, scored rind of the ink, scorched it. Tremor ran through the whole willow. The leaves seemed to hiss above their heads with the sound of pain. A loud scream came from Merry, and from far inside the tree they heard Pippin give a muffled yell. "Put it out! Put it out!" cried Merry. "They'll squeeze me in too." "You don't? It says so." "Who? What?" shouted Frodo, rushing round to the other side of the tree. "Put it out! Put it out!" begged Merry. The branches of the willow began to sway violently. There was a sound as of a wind rising and spreading outwards to the branches of all the other trees round it, as though they had dropped a stone into the quiet slumber. The river valley set up ripples of anger that ran out over the whole forest. Sam kicked at the little fire and stamped out the sparks, but Frodo, without any clear idea why he did so, or what he hoped for, ran along the path crying, "Help! Help! Help!" It seemed to him that he could hardly hear the sound of his own shrill voice. It was blown away from him by the willow wind and drowned in a clamor of leaves as soon as the words left his mouth. He felt so desperate, lost and witless. Suddenly he stopped. There was an answer, or so he thought, but it seemed to come from behind him, away down the path further back in the forest. He turned round and listened, and as soon as there could be no doubt, someone was singing a song. A deep, glad voice was singing carelessly and happily. It was singing nonsense. "Hey doll, merry doll, ring-a-dong dillo, ring-a-dong hop along, fall the willow, bom, jolly Tom, bombadillo." Half hopeful and half afraid of some new danger, Frodo and Sam now both stood still. Suddenly, out of a long string of nonsense words, or so they seemed, the voice rose up loud and clear. and burst into the song. Is it Halloween already? I see. No, it is not Halloween. This is just my Wednesday stream. I do Lord of the Rings. So I'm just doing like a reading of, and I thought it would be cool, if I was dressed as Gandalf. There any music here? Oh no, there is music here. And I can't actually hear it. I'm just looking at the audio mixer telling me there was no audio. Was I? Come, merry doll, dairy doll, my darling. Light goes the weather wind and the feather starling. Down along under hill, shining in the sunlight, waiting on the doorstep for the cold starlight. There my pretty lady is, river woman's daughter, lander as dearer than the water. Old Tom, still water ringing, comes hopping home again. Can you hear him singing? Hey, come, dairy doll, and Mary, oh, goldberry, goldberry, Mary, yellow berry. Poor old willow man, tuck your roots away. Tom's in a hurry now, he'll fall away. Tom's going home, ringing. Hey, come, dairy doll, can you hear me singing? Maheen, it's been a while. It's good to see you. We're just doing more Lord of the Rings today. You get to listen to my god-awful singing. Lucky you. I hope you've been well. Frodo and Sam stood silently again on stiff branches. There was another burst of song, and then suddenly, hopping and dancing along the path, there appeared above the reeds an old battered hat, a tall crown, and a long blue feather stuck in the band. With another hop and a bound, there came to view a man, or so it seemed. At any rate, he was too large and heavy for a hobbit, if not quite tall enough for one of the big people, though he made noise enough for one, jumping along with great yellow boots on his thick legs, and charging through the grass and rushes like a cow going down to drink. He had a blue coat and a long brown beard. His eyes were blue and bright, and his face was red as a ripe apple, but creased into 100 wrinkles of laughter. In his hands he carried on a large leaf, and on a tray a small pile of white lilies. Oh man, I hope work hasn't been too awful then. Yeah, sorry to hear you've been so busy. I think life tends to have ebbs and flows as far as work goes. Help! Cried Frodo and Sam, running toward him with their hands stretched out. Whoa, whoa, steady there! Cried the old man, holding up one hand, and they stopped short, as if they had been struck stiff. Ow, my little fellows, where be you a-going to? Puffing like a bellows. What's the matter here, then? You know who I am. I'm Bombadil. Tell me what's your trouble. Tom's in a hurry now. Don't you crush my lilies. My friends are caught in the willow tree, cried Frodo, breathlessly. Master Mary's being squeezed in a crack, cried Sam. What? Shouted Tom Bombadil, leaping in the air. Old Man Willow? Not worse than that, eh? That can soon be mended. Know the tune for him. Old Grey Willow Man, I'll freeze his marrow cold if he don't behave himself. I'll sing his roots off. I'll sing a wind up and blow leaf and branch away. Old Man Willow. Setting down his lilies carefully on the grass, he ran to the tree. There, he saw Mary's feet still sticking out. The rest had already been drawn further inside. Tom put his mouth to the crack and began singing into it in a low voice. They could not catch the words. Evidently, Mary was aroused. His legs began to kick. Tom sprang away and, breaking off a hanging branch, smote the side of the willow with it. "You let them out again, old man Willow," he said. "Be you a thinking of? You should not be wakin'. Earth, dig deep, drink water, go to sleep. Bombadil's talking." He then seized Mary's feet, drew him out of the suddenly widening crack. There was a tearing creak, and the other crack split open, and out of it Pippin sprang, as if he had been kicked. Then with a loud snap, both cracks closed fast again. A shudder ran through the tree, from root to tip, and complete silence fell. "Thank you," said the hobbits, one after the other. Tom Bombadil burst out laughing. "Well, my little fellows," he said, stooping so that he peered into their faces, "you shall come home with me. It was all laden with yellow cream, honeycomb, white bread and butter. Goldberry is waiting. Time enough for questions around the supper table. You follow after me as quick as you are able." With that, he picked up his lilies, and then, with a beckoning wave of his hand, went hopping and dancing along the path eastward, still singing loudly and nonsensically. Too surprised and too relieved to talk, the hobbits followed after him as fast as they could. But that was not fast enough. Tom... It is constantly falling off. Where was it? Tom soon disappeared in front of them, and the noise of his singing got fainter and farther away. Suddenly, his voice came floating back to them in a loud hollow halloo. "Hop along, my little friends, up with the window. Tom's going on ahead, candles for us to kindle. Down west sinks the sun, soon you will be groping. When the night shallows fall, when the door will open, out of the window panes light will twinkle yellow. Fear no alder black, head no hairy willow. Fear neither root nor bough, Tom goes on before you. Hey now, merry doll, we'll be waiting for you." After that, the hobbits heard no more. Almost at once, the sun seemed to sink into the trees behind them. They thought of the slanting lights of evening glittering on the Brandywine River, and the windows of Bucklebury beginning to gleam with hundreds of lights. Great shadows fell across them. Trunks and branches of trees hung dark and threatening over the path. White mist began to rise and curl on the surface of the river, and stray about the roots of the trees upon its borders. Out of the very ground at their feet a shadowy steam arose and mingled with swiftly falling dusk. It became difficult to follow the path, and they were very tired. Their legs seemed leaden. Strange, furtive noises ran among the bushes and reeds on either side of them, and if they looked up to the pale sky, they caught sight of queer, gnarled and knobby faces that gloomed dark against the twilight and leered down at them the high bank and the edge of the woods. They began to feel that all this country was unreal, and that they were stumbling through an ominous dream led to no awakening. Just as they felt their feet flowing down to a standstill, they noticed that the ground steadily, gently rising. The water began to murmur. In the darkness they caught the white glimmer of foam where the river flowed over a short fall. Then suddenly the trees came to an end and the mists were left behind. They stepped out of the forest and found a wide sweep of grass welling up before them. The river, now small and swift, was leaping merrily down to meet. Were already shining in the sky. The grass under their feet was smooth and short, as if it had been mown or shaven. The eaves of the forest were behind were clipped, and trim as a hedge. The path was now plain before them, well tended, and bordered with stone. It wound up onto the top of a grassy knoll, now gray under the pale starry night. And there, still high above them, on a further slope, they saw the twinkling lights of a house. Down again the path went, and then up again, up a long, smooth hillside of turf, towards the light. Suddenly a wide yellow beam flowed out brightly from a door that was opened. There was Tom Bombadil's house. Before them, up, down, under hill. Behind it, a steep shoulder of the land lay gray and bare, and beyond that the dark shapes of the Barrow Down stalked away into the eastern night. They all hurried forward, hobbits and ponies. Already half their weariness and all their fears had fallen from them. "Hey, come, merry doll!" rang out the song to greet them. "Hey, come, merry doll, hop along, my hearties. Hobbits, ponies all, we are fond of parties. Now let the fun begin, let us sing together." Then another clear voice, as young and as ancient as spring, like the song of a glad water flowing down into the from a bright morning in the hills, came falling like silver. "Now let the song begin. Let us sing together of sun, stars, moon, and mist, rain and cloudy weather, light on the budding leaf, dew on the feather, wind on the open hill, bells on the heather, reeds by the shady pool, lilies on the water, old Tom Bombadil, the river daughter." And with that song the hobbit stood upon the threshold, and a golden light. Oh man, so that's chapter 6, which not too long of a chapter. I remember the first one was like 2 hours of reading. So these chapters are getting a little shorter. Let me see how long this one is. Not too long. I actually think I can do one more chapter here. It's interesting rereading this story because I read this a long time ago, middle school. I don't remember a whole lot of the story itself, but I do remember Tom Bombadil, and he was not in the movies at all. So it's always interesting coming back and seeing like what changes were made. Novels. And as an anime fan, I always see like the changes that directors make in anime compared to like the light novel adaptation. Tend to cut a lot of content. A lot of content got cut from the Lord of the Rings movies. I still think they are probably one of the best movies of all time, directing wise. But it's always really interesting to see just how much got cut, because the hobbits did not go through this forest. They did not meet Tom Bombadil in the movies. Like this entire section that you see, it got cut. And I understand why, because it was not it's not necessary for the actual. This is a segment and it's part of their journey, but it did not actually have any bearing on the overall plot line. It was just one of many trials that they had to overcome before reaching Rivendell. And the movies were already very long. Already super long. I also don't know how they would have done this back then. I think the movies were made in like the early 2000s. I'm curious when they were made. I'll have to check that out, but they were made quite a while ago. I don't think our computer technology and our CGI quite up to the task of making this forest. Maybe during the time when they had made the Hobbits, it would have been good enough, but at the time when the Lord of the Rings was first coming out, I do not think they had the technology necessary to adequately make a realistic forest like this. Anyway, Chapter 7. In the House of Tom Bombadil. The four hobbits stepped over the wide stone threshold and stood still, blinking. They were in a long, low room filled with the light of lamps swinging from the beams of the roof, and on the table of dark polished wood stood many candles, tall and yellow, burning brightly. In a chair at the far side of the room, facing the outer door, sat a woman. Her long yellow hair rippled down her shoulders. Her gown was green, green as young reeds, shot with silver like beads of dew, and her belt was gold, shaped like a chain of flag lilies set with pale blue eyes of forget-me-nots. About I feel like that camera is following. About her feet in wide vessels of green, white water lilies were, so that she seemed enthroned in the midst of them. "Enter, good guests," said, and as she spoke they knew her clear. They came steps further and began to bow low, feeling strangely surprised, awkward. Spoke that, knocking at a door, begged for it, have been answered by a fair young. But before they could say anything, she sprang lightly up, over the lily bowls, and ran laughing toward them. And as she ran, her gown rustled softly like a flowering boy. "Come, dear folk," she said, taking Frodo by the hand. "Laugh and be merry. I am Goldberry, daughter of the river." Then lightly she her back to it, her white arms spread out across it. "Let us shut out the night, for you are still afraid, perhaps, of mist and tree shadows, water and unseen things. Fear nothing, for tonight you are under the roof of Tom Bombadil." The hobbits looked at her, and she looked at each of them and smiled. "There, Lady Goldberry," said Frodo at last, feeling his heart move with the joy that he did not understand. Stood, as he had at times stood in by fair elven voices, but the spell that was now laid upon him was different, less keen, lofty, but deeper and nearer to mortal hearts, marvelous and strange. "Fair Lady Goldberry," he said again, "now the joy that was in the songs we heard is made plain. O slender as a willow wand, O clear, O reed by the lip, fair river daughter, O spring, summertime, after, O wind on the waterfall." Suddenly he stopped, stammered, overcome with. Goldberry laughed. "Welcome," she said, "and I had not heard that folk of the Shire were so sweet-tongued. I see that you are an elf friend. The light in your eyes and the ring in your voice tells it. This is a merry meeting. And wait for the master of the house. It will not be long." Tired beast. The hobbits sat down gladly, low rush-seated chairs, while Goldberry elf around about the table. Their eyes followed her. The slender grace of her movement filled them with quiet delight. Somewhere behind the house came the sound of singing. Every now and again they caught, among many a dairy doll and a merry doll, and a ring-a-ding-dillo, repeated words.
Old Tom Bombadil, the merry fellow, bright blue jacketed. Fair lady, Frodo again. Tell me, my asking does not seem. Who is Tom Bombadil? Said Goldberry, staying with her swift movement. Frodo, questioningly, is as you have seen. Answer to his the master of water and hill. All this no indeed. Her smile faded. That would burden, added no. Trees in the grass, all things growing or living in the along each. Tom Bombadil, the master. No one has ever caught old Tom walking, wading in the water, sitting on the hilltop, light and shadow. Has no fear. Tom Bombadil, master. The door opened. In came Bombadil. He had now no hat. Thick brown hair was crowned with autumn leaves. Laughed. Goldberry took her hand. Here's my pretty lady, said, bowing to the hobbits. Here's my Goldberry, clothed all in silver green with flowers in her girdle. Is the table laden? I see yellow cream, honeycomb, white bread and butter, milk, herbs, ripe berries gathered. Is that enough for us? Is the supper ready? Is. Guests, perhaps. Tom clapped his hands. Tom, your guests are tired, but near forgotten. Come now, my merry friends, and Tom will refresh you. Shall clean grimy hands and wash your weary faces. Cast off your muddy cloaks and out your tangle. He opened the door, followed him down a short passage. Sharp turn. They came to a low room with a sloping roof, a penthouse, built on to the north end. Its walls were of clean stone. They were mostly covered with green hanging mats. The floor was flagged, strewn with fresh green rushes. There were 4 deep mattresses, piled with white blankets, laid on the floor along. Against the opposite wall, was a long bench laden with wide earthenware basins. Beside it stood brown ewers filled with water, some cold, some steaming. There were soft green slippers set ready beside. 4 long, washed and refreshed. The hobbits were seated at the table, 2 on each side, while at either end sat Goldberry. It was a long and merry meal. The hobbits ate as only famished hobbits can. Drinks, their drink. Their hearts set free. As became suddenly aware that they merrily, as if it was easy, more natural. At last, Tom and Goldberry rose and cleared. Guests were commanded to sit quiet. Chairs, footstool, tired feet. The fire in the wide hearth for them, burning with a sweet, as if it were built of applewood. When everything was set in order, all the lights in the room were, except one lamp, a pair of candles of the chimney. Then Goldberry came, stood before them, holding a candle, and she wished them each a good night. Have peace until the morning. Heed no nightly noises, for nothing passes door and window here save moonlight, starlight, and the wind off the hill. Good night. Passed out of the room. The sound of her footsteps was like a stream falling away downhill over cool stones in the corner. Tom sat on a while beside them. while each of them tried to muster the courage to ask one of the many questions he gathered in their eyelids. Last, Frodo spoke. Did you hear me calling, Master? Was it just chance that brought you? Third, pleasant dream. What? I hear you calling. Nay, I did not hear. I was busy singing. Just chance brought me then. Chance you called. No plan of mine, though I was waiting for you. For news of you. Learned that you were wandering. Guessed you'd come ere long down the river, down to the water. All paths lead that way, down to Withfield. Old Grey Willow Man. And it's hard for little folk to escape his cunning mazes. Tom had an errand there that he had not hidden her. Tom nodded. But he went on in a soft singing voice. There, gathering water lilies, white to him from the wind. I go. Know why? Far down with you. There they opened spring, and there by that pool. There young. Opened them his eyes and looked into blue. And that proved well for you, for now I shall no longer go in along the forest water, not while the year is old, nor shall I be and willow, not till the merry dances down the wind, bathe in. Fell silent again. One he most desired. Master, out the willow. No, don't, said Mary, and sitting suddenly upright. Not now, not until morning. That is right. Now is the time for resting. Some things are ill to hear when the world's in shadow. Sleep till the morning light. Below, no nightly noises, no gray willow. That he took down the lamp, grasping a candle in either hand, he led them out of their mattresses, soft as the blankets. They had hardly laid themselves on the beds. Drawn the light covers over. In the dead of night, Frodo lay in a dream without light. He saw the young moon rising. Under its thin light, pierced, dark arch. Frodo, passing over, saw that the rock wall was full of hills. That's not within it. And in the midst of the plain stood a pinnacle of stone, vast tower, not made by him. On its top stood the figure of a man. The moon, as it rose, seemed to hang, glistened in his. Up from the dark plain below, crying of fell voices, howling of men. Suddenly a shadow, like the shape of great wings, passed across the figure, lifted arms, light, path. A mighty eagle swept down and bore him away. Voices wailed in the wind. There was a noise like a strong wind. On it was borne the sound of hooves, upping from riders, thought. Waken, sound of hooves still echoing. Wondered would ever again have the courage. Still listening, but all was now. At his side, Pippin lay dreaming. But a change came over his dream, and suddenly he awoke. Thought he had still heard in the darkness the sound that had. Noise was like branches spreading in the wind, twig fingers scraping wall and window. There were willow trees, house. Suddenly he had a dreadful. It was not an ordinary house at all. Beside the willow, and listening to that horrible dry creak. Sat up, soft pillow, pulled it to. Lay down again. Hear the echo of birds in his. And nothing till the morning. It was the sound of water. Water streaming gently, spreading all around the house into a doorless pool. Gurgled under, rising slowly but surely. I'll be drowned, he thought. Find its way in, and I shall drown. He felt that he was soft fog. And springing up, he set foot on the corner of a hard flag. Then he remembered where he was and lay down. He seemed to hear or remember hearing. Passes doors or windows. Starlight, the wind of little breath of breathe deep. Or as he could remember, slept through if logs. They woke up, all four at once. Tom was moving about the room. Heard them stir, he clapped his Hey, come merry dog, party. Back the yellow curtains. Hobbit saw that he covered the windows at either end of the room, one looking east. They leapt up, refreshed. Frodo ran to the east, of looking garden, gray. Had half expected earth right up to the walls, earth all pocked with. Actually, his view was a line of beam poles, but above and far beyond them, the gray top of the hill loomed. Was a pale morning. In the east, clouds like lines of red lay glimmering deep yellow. Sky spoke of rain to come, but the light was broadening quickly, and the red flowers on the beam leaves. Pippin looked out of the western window, down into a. The forest was here. It was like looking down onto a sloping cloud roof. Cold, broken valley of the Withindle. Stream ran down the hill on the left and near at hand was a flower garden, clipped hedge, silver netted, on that gray. There was no willow tree. Morning, merry friends, cried Tom, opening the east window wide. Cool air flowed in. Had a rainy smell. Sun won't show her face much today, I'm thinking. I've been walking wide on the hilt. The gray dawn began. Nosing wind and weather. Grass underfoot, sky above me. I wakened goldberries singing under window. not wakes hobbit folk early morning. Night, folk wake up in the darkness after light has come. King Dillo, wake now, my merry friends. Forget the mighty noise. Dillo Dell, Harry Dell, my hearties. Come soon, you'll find breakfast on the. Come late, you'll eat grass and rainwater. Needless to say, not that Tom's threat sounded very. Hobbits came and left the table late, only when it was beginning to look rather empty. Neither Tom nor Goldberry. Tom could be heard about the house, clattering in the up and down the stairs and singing. The moon looked westward, clouded valley. The window was open. Water dripped down from the thatched eave above. Before they had finished breakfast, clouds had joined the broken roof, and a straight gray rain came softly and steadily down. Behind its deep curtain, the worst was completely veiled. As they looked out the window, there came falling gently, flowing down the rain out of the sky, the clear voice of Goldberry above them. They could hear few words. It seemed plain to them that the song was a rain song, sweet as showers on dry, that told the tale of spring in the highlands. The hobbits listened with delight. Frodo was glad in his heart, blessed the kindly weather, because it delayed them. The thought of going had been heavy upon him, but he guessed he would not go further that day. The upper wind settled in the west. Thicker and wetter clouds rolled up their laden of the downs. Nothing could be seen all around the house but falling water. Frodo stood near the open, watched white chalky path turn into a little river of mist, go bubbling away down into the. Tom Bombadil came trotting round the corner, waving his arms as if warding off. Sprang over the threshold, quite dry. Boots, these he took off, sat in the largest chair and called the hobbits to gather around him. This is Goldberry's washing day, and her autumn cleaning. Too wet for hobbit folk. Let them rest while they are able. It's a good day for long tales, for questions and for answers. So Tom will start the talking. Then told them many remarkable stories, sometimes half as if speaking to himself, sometimes looking at them suddenly with a bright blue eye under his brows. Often his voice would turn to song, and he would get out of his chair and dance about. Told them tales of bees, flowers, trees, the strange creatures of the forest, about the evil, friendly, and things unfriendly, cruel things and kind things. As they listened, they began to understand the lives of the forest, apart from them. Indeed, to feel themselves as the strangers where all other things were at home, moving constantly in and out of his talk. Old Man Willow. Frodo learned now enough to more than enough, for it was not comfortable. Tom's words laid bare the hearts of trees, were often dark and strange, filled with a gnawing, biting, breaking, destroyers, and it was not called the Old Forest, for it was indeed a survivor, vast forgotten wood, and in it there lived yet aging fathers of the father, remembering time, countless years. But none were more dangerous. Heart rotten, strength was cunning, and a master of winds, song and thought rang. His gray, thirsty spirit drew power. Thread, fine root threads, visible twig air, so that it had under its dome all the trees. Suddenly Tom's talk left him, went leaping up the young stream. Waterfall. Among small flowers and clover, wandering at last up. They heard of the great barrows. The stone rings upon the hill, hollows among the hills. Green walls and white walls. Fortresses. Kings of little kingdoms fought together, and the young sun shone like fire on the portal of victory. All towers fell, fortresses up into gold piled on the downs covered them. Stone doors were shut. Grass grew over. Sheep walked for a while, biting the ground. The hills were empty. A shadow came out. The bones were stirred. Borrow whites. Stone rings grin. Fire the roof are white. On the forest. But it was not a tale that any hobbit liked to listen to, even by a. These four now suddenly remembered the joy of this driven from their minds. The house of Tom Bombadil nestled on the shoulder of those. They lost the thread of his tale. Sighed at one. When they caught his words again, they found that he had now wandered into on their memory, beyond their wake. The times when the world was wider, flowed straight to the western shore, still on and back Tom, out, starlight, when only the elf sires were awake. Suddenly he stopped, and they saw that he nodded, falling asleep. The hobbit sat still before him, as if under the spell of his word. Clouds had dried up. The day. Darkness had come from all the skies. Whether the morning or and one day or of many, did not feel either hungry or tired. Stars shone through the window, the silence of the heavens. Spoke at last, not out of wonder. At last, out of his wonder, the sudden fear. Who are you? What? Said Tom, sitting up, eyes glinting. Don't you know my name yet? Answer. Tell me, who are you, alone, yourself, and nameless? You are young, and I am old. Eldest, I am. Mark my words, my friends. Tom was here before the river and the tree. First raindrop and the first acorn made paths before the big people. Saw the little people arriving. Here before the king. Raised in the borrow whites. Yells passed westward. Tom was here already. Knew the dark, fearless. Before the Dark Lord came, a shadow. The hobbits glanced hastily. When they turned again, Huckleberry stood or behind, framed in light. held a candle, wielding in its flame. The draught with her hand. Light flowed through it. Sunlight through it. The rain has ended. New waters are running downhill under the stars. Let us now laugh and be glad. Let us have food and drink, cried Tom. Long tales are thirsty. Long listening's hungry work. Morning, noon, and evening. With that, he jumped out of his chair, and with a bound, himself lit it in the flame that gold. Then he danced about the table. Suddenly he stopped. He hopped through the door and disappeared. Quickly he returned, large and gray. Then Tom and Goldberry set the table. The hobbits sat half in wonder and half in laughter. So fair was the grace of Goldberry, and so merry and odd the cape of Tom. In some fashion they seemed to weave a single dance, neither hindering the other, in and out of the room, round about the table. And with great speed, vessels and lights were set in order. The boards blazed with candles, white and yellow. Tom bowed to his guests. Supper is ready, said Goldberry. Now the hobbits saw, clothed all in silver with a white. Their shoes were like fishes' mail. Tom was all in clean blue, blue as rain-washed forget-me stockings. It was a supper even better than before. The hobbits, under the spell of Tom's words, may have missed, or many. When the food was before them, it took at least a week. They did not sing or even speak much for a while, and paid close attention to me. Time their hearts and spirits rose high again, and their voices rang out. And after they had eaten, Goldberry sang many songs for them, songs that began and fell softly down into silence. And in the silences they saw in their minds waters wider, pools and waters wider than any they had known. And looking into them, they saw the sky below them, stars like jewels. Once more she wished them each good night. I had a beard in and left them by the fireside. Tom now seemed wide awake, plied them with appeared already to know much about them, all their family, and indeed to know much of all the history, down from days hardly remembered among the hobbits themselves. It no longer surprised them, but he made no secret that he owed his largely to he seemed to regard as a person of more importance than they imagined. There's earth under his old feet, clay on his fingers, wisdom in his both his eyes are open. It was also clear that Tom had that in some fashion from Gildor concerning the flight. Indeed, so much did Tom know, so cunning was his questioning, that Frodo found himself telling more about Bilbo, his own hopes and fears, told, or even Tom wagged his up and down. There was a glint in his eyes when he "Show me the precious ring," he said. Frodo, his own astonishment, drew out the chain from his pocket. Unfastening the ring, handed it at once to Tom. It seemed to grow larger as it lay. Then suddenly he put it to his eye, laughed. For a second the hobbits had a vision, comical and alarming, of his bright blue eye, circle of gold. Then Tom put the ring round the end of his little finger, held it up. For a moment, the hobbits noticed nothing strange about this. Asked. There was no sign of Tom disappearing. Tom laughed again, and spun the ring in the air. It vanished with a flash. Frodo gave a cry, and Tom leaned forward and handed it back to him. Frodo looked at it closely. One who had lent a trinket, juggler. Same ring, for that ring had always seemed to Frodo strangely heavily in the hand. Something prompted him to make sure. He was perhaps a trifle annoyed with Tom, of what even Gandalf thought important. He waited for an opportunity. When the talk was going again, Tom was telling an absurd story of badgers. Frodo turned toward him to say something and give a start. Checked. Frodo was delighted. It was his own ring, all right. Harry was staring blankly. Obviously, could not see him. He got up and crept quietly away from the fireside. "Hey there!" cried Tom, glancing toward him with a most stinging look. "Hey, come, Frodo, there! Where you be a-goin'? Old Tom Bombadil's not as blind as that yet. Take off your golden ring. Sounds more fair without it. Come back. Your game and sit down beside me. Let's talk a while more and think about the morning. Right road and keep your feet from wandering." Frodo laughed. Taking off the ring, he came and sat down again. Tom now told him he reckoned the sun would shine tomorrow. Glad morning, and setting out, hopeful that they would do well to start early, for weather in that country was a thing that even Tom was sure of for long. And it would change sometimes quicker than he could change his jacket. "I'm no weather master," he said, "nor is aught that goes on two legs." By his advice, they decided to make north house over the western and lower slopes of the downs. They might hope in that way to break the east road and avoid the Barrows. He told them not to be afraid, mind their own business. "Green grass, don't you go meddling with old stone or the cold white, or prying in their houses, unless strong folks with hearts that never waver." He said this more than once, and he advised them to pass Barrows by on the west side. They chanced to stray near one, and he taught them a rhyme to sing. Luck, by ill luck, fall into evil. "Oh, Tom Bombadillo, by water, wood, and hill, by fire, sun, and moon, hearken now and hear, Tom Bombadil." They had sung this all together after him, clapped at them, and taking candles, led them. That was a pretty short chapter, but I'm finished now. My throat is parched.
Not have any water.
This wig is fine, but the beard was getting in my mouth. So. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the story. I can now hear the music. That's all for today. This is one of my shorter streams, just because I'm only reading like 1 or 2 chapters of the. It's very difficult. Lord of the Rings as a story is, aside from being very verbose, there's a lot of language that is old. I think that's the best way I can describe it. It's a very, very... It's a story that has a very old language. Which I think makes sense, because Lord of the Rings was written back in a long time ago. I want to say it was the 1800s. Check, just to make sure. I'm actually going to look this up. Lord of the Rings. Published... Oh, never mind. It was published in 1954. So, not as nearly as old as I thought it was. At the very least, 50 years younger. But no, it is still a very old story. And as far as stories go, its language extremely like an ancient dialect, which makes it hard for me to read because uh, I don't know how to say all the words that are in the book. Never heard anyone say them myself, so I'm just doing like my best guess, figure out like what how the word is. And I'm not that great of a reader out loud to begin with, so it's sort of doubly hard for me. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the story. I do this every Wednesday if you want to join. And I think that's it. My next stream will be on Friday evening at around 5 o'clock ish. 5 or 6. I will be streaming Ghost of Tsushima. After that is Saturday, again, early in the morning. I will be streaming with some friends of mine. So if you guys wanted to watch one of probably my more popular streams, you will follow. Pop in there. Anyways, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Enjoy the rest of the week. Try not to work too hard. The weekend. Thank you all again for joining me, and I will talk to you